Hi, I'm Amy.
And I'm Kirsty.
And this is our podcast covering the highs, lows and realities of parenting a child with neurodiversity.
Each week we'll be sharing updates from our lives and hearing from a variety of guests about their advice and experiences.
This is Love Needs No Words. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Love Needs No Words. Today we're joined by Vicki Egarr, who has run Wacky Woods Alternative Provision since September last year, a forest school in Maidenhead. Vicki, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a bit about forest schools and about the one you work for in particular.
Okay, so forest schools are a very unique approach to learning. Which obviously emphasises teaching children outdoors in a very nature-based learning environment, and it just provides children with the opportunities to explore and play and learn outside, helps them foster resilience and gaining confidence and just really connect with nature and get that connection. For me, like, the aim is to kind of try and get more children playing outside and back to being children, really, and climbing trees. I've got a few forest school provisions. I've got Little Muddy Me, which is a preschool for children from age 2 to 5. And at Muddy Me, we also run a home education group for children age 5 to 11. And then we've got Wacky Woods, which is our alternative provision, which is for children who struggle in mainstream school. So the idea is that they are at mainstream school for the majority of the week and they come to us for respite. So that might be that they're at risk of exclusion from school, or they just need some time out, really, once a week or twice a week to kind of reset.
How did you sort of get into it, Vicki? What was your sort of inspiration for doing it?
So interestingly, I was never an outdoor person. I've always worked with children. In 2017, I opened my first preschool, and with that was a small wooded area, and taking the children out, and I realised just the difference with them playing in that wooded area and what a lovely time they were having to when we were inside in the preschool. Just got me really interested in teaching children outside. I went on to do my forest school qualification, and that then led me to opening Little Muddy Me, which is a solely outdoor preschool. There isn't any indoor space at all, so the children are there 9 till 3 outside all day, every day.
Wow.
Regardless of the weather, we're out. So it really changed my kind of outlook, really, on children just being outside and how better they learn and how brilliant it is, particularly for children with SEN.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to touch on that, actually. So what would you say are sort of the main benefits of forest schools on children with additional needs? And can you give us sort of some examples of maybe some of the children that started off there that, were sort of showing quite a lot of behavioural issues and how it's made such a difference?
Yeah, well, it just provides a really multi-sensory and low pressure environment for these children. You know, school is a real challenge, and, you know, just being made to sit at a desk and learn, it doesn't work for actually a lot of children, particularly children with SEN. And, you know, we seem to be more aware of children's SEN needs now, that we have a lot of children who have been diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and just how much they're struggling within the education system. And I think the benefits for children, particularly with additional needs, is just getting them out in nature, and it helps reduce anxiety, it improves focus and encourages that social interaction in a way that, you know, traditional classrooms often struggle to achieve. Wacky Woods, for example, which is our AP, when we work with children who find mainstream schools completely overwhelming, one child who struggles with communication and engagement in a formal setting quite often thrive in an outdoor provision. It just allows them to interact with nature, It allows them to move at their own pace through climbing, digging, exploring, and it builds up their confidence, improves their ability to engage in group activities, and also develops their life skills. We do a lot of fires and using tools and things like that. And they just love it. They love having the trust, that goes with it as well. We're letting children use knives to do whittling, and they just love it.
I can imagine it's really amazing for children just to be able to explore their own curiosity as well, and almost self-direct themselves to be able to find the things that they enjoy. Because I think sometimes with school, like it's very structured, isn't it? And for children that struggle with that structure and find that quite challenging if their brain's not working in that way, or they see things in a different light. I would imagine with what you're doing, they just have so much more scope to be able to find the things that they enjoy, rather than it being quite so directed.
Absolutely. When we plan, we very much plan around the children's interests and what they like doing. So, for example, we've got a 12-year-old at our alternative provision who loves to cook, really, really enjoys cooking. And so most weeks with him, we do a cooking activity which he leads, and cooking on the campfire. And, just last week, he wrote a shopping list. We went with him to buy all the ingredients from the local shop, and there was just so much learning. He prepared it all. He was asking the children to get involved and telling them what to do and what he needed chopping up, and preparing all of the food. And then we cooked it all on the campfire. Steak, garlic, mushroom. It was just amazing, like fried potatoes and broccoli. And we had this massive feast, which he'd completely planned, written out, done the shopping, and then prepared it and cooked it all on the campfire. And it was just completely child-led, completely all his idea, and just loves it. And there's so much learning and life skills comes from that.
And I can just imagine the confidence that young boy is going to be gaining from doing that. And I would imagine that perhaps when he's at school, there's probably a lot of you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and the feeling that he's not doing all of these things. And then if he's able to achieve that, doing something that he loves, it's going to feel amazing. And building that confidence is so important in those early years, I think, because I just think there's a lot of negative messaging for these children.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. The confidence that came out of it. And then the following week he wanted to cook a fry up, so we did that and at Christmas we cooked a whole Christmas lunch on the campfire. We literally cooked the turkey, the roast potatoes, everything all on the campfire.
So you don't need to bring lunch to work then, Vicky, because they're providing it for you.
Yeah, they'll cook it for me.
No Wonderful. Rubbish sandwiches for you for lunch. You're having steak and a fried breakfast.
Exactly.
So Vicky, how many do you have during the day, and sort of how it sounds like you sort of really try and tailor the day to each individual? So how do you sort of go about that? Is there a lot of planning ahead of each day that they come?
How many children can we have? Well, with the alternative provision, we can have up to 10 children, but we don't have that many. We're very much relying on funding, which is really difficult for these children. I mean, by the time they come to our alternative provision, it's kind of last resort, where the school have tried everything, and now they're not really quite sure, which direction to go. So, and it's very difficult to get funding for these children to attend, unfortunately, because they're relying on taking it to panel and asking the council for extra money for these children to be able to do these extra activities, which is a real shame. So I think lack of funding is definitely hard. And then for the nursery, we take 15 and 30 hour funding, just like they do any other nursery. So we have up to 30 children in the nursery a day attending, and another 10 for the home ed groups.
Yeah, it's so frustrating for parents not to be able to access services like you're offering for children. I bet there's so many parents who are listening who are thinking, that would be amazing
Sounds
for my
perfect.
child
Yeah.
to have that alongside, mainstream education to build those skills.
Yeah.
But it's just trying to access this funding is so
It's
difficult.
really hard. And when you've got a child with SEN, you just want to do everything you
Mm.
possibly can. And there's a real gap actually, because I have children with SEN myself. My daughter was homeschooled because she struggled in mainstream education, and she's kind of been my inspiration really for all of this. But you, as a parent with SEN children, you are constantly fighting a battle to get them what they want. And I quite often find that, Maidenhead particularly, we've got some wonderful SEN schools, really, really brilliant schools, and we've got our mainstream schools, but there isn't anything for the children in between. Just the children who are more than capable, but just learn in a much more practical based way. There's a lot of children out there that just cannot sit at a desk and learn. But they're more than capable of doing, very practical activities in terms of forest school, farming, even mechanics. It is a shame that we can't do more of that kind of learning. And I do understand, lack of funding, lack of resources, there's a lot of strain on teachers. But yeah, it's when my daughter was struggling in mainstream education, I had no alternative other than to take her out and homeschool her, because there just wasn't a school that was suitable for her to go to that was going to work for her. Now she's older, it's a bit easier because there's now a lot of 14 to 16-year-old programs out there. She goes to one at Berkshire College of Agriculture, and they're fantastic. But obviously, before they're 14, you've got to wait until then, really, to find provisions like that. And most parents can't afford, to pay for them to go to an alternative provision and things, because if you're taking your children out to homeschool, then a lot of people who are homeschooling would only have they're going to struggle to work and homeschool at the same time. So yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. It's like we recognise as adults that there's lots and lots of us who are more practical, who are, more suited to doing apprenticeships, and there's provision for that, and there's a lot of focus on it. But where's the recognition that those people who learn in that way are going through school? They're young people once, and they need that. They need that alternative provision when they're younger to be able to thrive.
They do, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it would be great if more schools could do more forest school, like almost make it part of their curriculum, like they do with PE lessons and sport and stuff like that. I just think if they could just get forest school in there as well, teach them all these life skills, then that would be amazing. I recently worked in a school in Marlow actually, and they were fantastic. They do forest school every single day with their children.
Wow.
And the children get so much out of it, and they do it for an hour every day with each class. So it would be great if more schools could to do that. But again, it just comes down to resources and funding.
We've been to see quite a few specialist provisions recently, and most of them have had a forest school attached to it, which I think is just so brilliant. But mainstream schools could benefit so much, because if they're having that time where they're playing outside and learning those skills, they'll probably be more concentrated when they get back into the classroom.
Yeah, I agree.
And it is a bit more popular at the moment, but in primary, but not in secondary,
where it probably is needed the most.
And actually that would be amazing for secondary school students to be able to have that opportunity, even if they could do some sort of club and stuff like that. But interestingly, they kind of seem to stop it. They just kind of do key stage 1, maybe 2, and then they don't do it anymore.
There must be huge benefits for these children as well, who are outdoors, in terms of their mental health, their sleep.
Yeah.
Because I know what it's like for me at the moment. I literally, feel like with my son, it's just a race to get him ready in the morning. We go to school. He's then, okay, he does PE and stuff and he goes outside a little bit, but then he's at school all day. He does an after school club. I get him home, he eats dinner, he goes to bed. Where's the opportunity during that day to burn off all that energy that he has?
Such a busy day, isn't it? And actually
Yeah.
spending time outdoors has countless benefits for children's physical, emotional, cognitive development. You know, it encourages physical activity, just, you know, being able to climb trees, and, you know, it's such a simple thing. You know, running, balancing on logs, and just improving, you know, their motor skills and coordination, as well as mental health and being in the fresh air. I mean, I certainly know that I feel better just being outside. And at the you know, the nursery where the children are outside all the time, we get colds and stuff like that, but we don't get any bugs or, you know, any illnesses like that, because we're outside all the time. And it just kind of reduces stress levels, increases, you know, just happiness. And yeah, it's just so many benefits to being outside. And I think within schools as well, they could do more outside. I always believe that whatever you can do in a classroom, you can easily do outside. You just grab your clipboards and your paper and pens and just go and do your maths lesson outside on the school field. You know, there's no reason why you can't do that. But I don't know why we feel like we can only learn kind of sat at a desk. I think they'd get a lot more from the children, you know, by, you know, actively taking everyone outside. I'm sure there's teachers sat there going, it's easy for you to say, which I appreciate that. Absolutely. You know,
I think it must have such a massive benefit for the children that come to you that are really struggling at school, but also for the parents, that I can imagine even the thought of having to educate them at home is really quite stressful and scary, and actually probably thinking, if they're not learning in a school environment, I'm going to really struggle at home. Where they're coming to you, they're learning in a different way, you're seeing the confidence thrive, and they're probably going home full of this confidence and feeling like they've got the ability to do things that maybe they didn't know they could do. So for many people listening that are interested in getting their child into forest school, which I'm sure there's loads, how difficult is it? What is the sort of process surrounding it?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of forest schools, you know, around the UK. There'll be some, you know, there's a Forest School Association kind of website which has quite a few listed on there. And, you know, quite often just kind of Googling the forest schools within your area, there's usually some asking on the Facebook page. I mean, I've visited some wonderful forest schools around the country. I went to see one called Beetle Woods there, a nursery as well, completely outside kind of Coventry way. And there's an amazing school in London I went to visit called Liberty Woodland School, and that was actually a primary and a secondary school in London. It's private, but it's all based outside, and they had like teepees as their classroom. Wow. So there are plenty around, and, you know, and even when it comes to choosing schools, there are a lot of schools out there who do are more outdoorsy than others. So depending on what area, you know, you're from, I think it is getting more and more popular, and there seems to be more and more people and teachers doing the forest school training now, because it's quite an intensive training course actually to learn to do all the forest school skills. They really teach you properly how to teach children how to light fires safely and do all the cooking on the campfire and using tools and the safe way to do it. It's a year's course. A lot of insurance companies don't like insuring outdoor schools unless they've got this forest school qualification, or they've got a couple of staff with the forest school qualification on site. But yeah, they are getting more, and alternative provisions are getting a bit more popular now as well.
And how do people apply for them, Vicky? Did you say through the local authority?
Yeah, no, you just apply with the forest school generally. So when you find one, so certainly with us, I mean, if it's an alternative provision, generally you need to be referred by the school to go there. So but I've had a lot of parents saying, oh, this would be amazing, and they go and speak to the school and just see whether they would be open to them doing one day, even if it's just 1 day a week respite. But it might be that they agree to that, but you'd have to privately fund it if, you know, the funding's not there. Certainly with the alternative provision, the tricky bit is funding. Generally, but you would apply through the nursery or through the alternative provision. And if there's space, and then with us, you would go on a waiting list if there's no space, and we let you know when there's space available. And I think that's generally the same with a lot of the schools and nurseries.
What about weekends? Do you do weekends as well?
No, we don't. We do children's birthday parties, like Forest School birthday parties, and I do some SEND groups where they come with their parents, and I do that at the Muddy site. But where we run Wacky Woods is actually at Thames Valley Adventure Playground. Oh, it's an amazing provision for SEN. So we rent a small wooded area that's part of Thames Valley Adventure Playground, and the rest of it, you know, they get a lot of school trips that go there during the week. And then on Friday, they do a group for adults with SEN. And then at the weekends, they do a lot of groups as well, where they invite families along, and it's just an incredible place for people who have got children with SEN. They've got sensory rooms, they've got soft play, they've got the outdoor Forest School bit that we're in. If you haven't been there, then have a look, because they always have loads of things going on, and it's incredible. It's such a big space, and it's safe, it's fenced all the way around, there's no judgment. It's just the staff and volunteers there are just amazing. So that's also a brilliant resource if you have children with special educational needs.
We've been there, actually went for the day, and you're right, it's got a really lovely indoor soft play area, which Alex really loved, and a nice sort of cafe bit that looks over the lake, doesn't it? It's really pretty.
Really lovely setting. Yeah, and they've got like a go-kart area, giant. Yeah, it's got everything there. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
There's loads there. So that's Thames Valley Adventure Playground.
Thames Valley Adventure Playground. Yeah.
If you fancy having a look. What would be the dream, Vicki, sort of going forward, if you could?
The dream for me would be to open a school. That's probably it's something that I've definitely looked into, an outdoor school similar to. The problem is I went to look around Liberty Woodland, which is wonderful, but it's private again. So, you know, you have to have a lot of money to go there. And just having something similar, an outdoor school, TP classrooms, just where children can be children, but, you know, still learn in that environment would just be, you know, amazing. But you know, I don't know how you would do that with the funding, really, and be able to still access so that it's available for all, because you don't want it just available for people who are fortunate enough to be able to pay. You know, it'd be really nice for it to be, you know, available for all children that struggle, and just have that place that's in between. We've got like I said earlier, we've got our special educational needs schools, and we've got our mainstream schools. But it's really hard to get anything in between for, you know, kind of our children who are autistic, ADHD, who just need to run and be children.
I can imagine there's so many parents listening thinking that would be amazing for my child. They would thrive in that environment. To be honest, I'm thinking that would be amazing for my child.
Great. Yeah,
he'd love it. Yeah,
but I'm early years, and you know, I'm not a teacher as such, so I've looked into it. I kind of wrote a bit of a plan, and that would be amazing. It would be a bit of a dream to be able to open something like that was funded by this, you know, like a mainstream school, really. But yeah,
Oh,
just
I hope you're able to do this one day, because
one
you're
day.
making such a difference to so many already. It would just be
Oh,
amazing to help more and more. What would your advice be, Vicky, to any parents sort of thinking about sending their children to forest school, but sort of a bit unsure?
obviously, I think it's amazing. Like, just children spending loads of time outside. So I think do it, give it a go. And if find one in your area and go and have a look round. And, a lot of them will do trials as well. I know we do before, we kind of sign anyone up. We will do all the settling in sessions, and just making sure that it is right for, it's not, because it's not for all children. We have had some children before that just can't cope with being outside in all weathers, and
Yeah.
just get rid. I'm not saying that this is like the ideal environment for every child out there, but I think the majority, actually, it probably would be. And listen to your children as well, because they're normally very good at telling you whether they're enjoying it or not, and they know what's good for them, and what they're enjoying. That's really
Definitely.
important.
The
And
children in your alternative provision, Vicky, how long do they normally spend with you? Is it a term? Is it a couple of weeks? Is it years? What?
Very, very much depends, but we do 6 weeks at a time, generally, is what we sign children up for. So we say kind of 6 weeks, so half a term, but we do have, and then we renew it. The school, if they're investing in us as an alternative provision and we're working with them, they have to see an improvement in, obviously, and know that the funding that they're spending, the money that they're spending, is making a difference to the child. So yeah, we usually do it 6 weeks at a time, but a lot of children do stay a lot longer than that. But particularly with the alternative provision, the idea is for them to come to us and us to work in getting them back into full-time education for those particular children. And that's kind of the point of the alternative provision, is that it's not a permanent thing, because, like I said, by the time the schools send them to us, it is kind of last resort before potentially these children might get expelled from school. So yeah, ideally we want to be getting them back into full-time education if we can, and that's for us to work on their emotional well-being, and how they regulate, really, and how they are interacting with their peers, and just kind of help them through that.
I was going to say that must be quite tough for some that know that after a certain amount of weeks that will be the end. Yeah. Do you sort of use what you've learned and give tips back to the school to kind of
We
help?
do, and with the alternative, we work very closely with the school. We write reports and we send them to the school. We do weekly updates as well. We send photographs to the school and the parents of what the children have been doing, and a little write-up, and we also kind of track how they've been getting on with us, because at the alternative provision, we always say we're not a school. At the end of the day, we're not going to be teaching them all the curriculum bits, because that's what they're doing at school. The idea of them coming to us is when they're struggling with their mental health, they're struggling with their emotions, they're struggling with their peers, and getting on with other children and teachers, and it's kind of, they come to us to just find themselves again, and almost kind of learn how to behave at school, and we try and help them through that, and try and find out how they're feeling, and what's making them, a lot of them get quite angry at school, and we want to get to the bottom of why they're feeling like that, and give them strategies to be able to help when they go back to school, and just be able to control their emotions, really.
I guess as well, giving them some mechanisms and some confidence that actually, of things that they can do that they know relax them or make them feel calmer, going outdoors, going for a walk, like even if it's just simple things like that, but just going outside of their house rather than maybe sitting behind a screen. That's no judgment, my child does that, but I guess that's the default for a lot of children now,
It
because
is,
that becomes their
because
world quite often.
Yeah, and I know that when, there are times where I sit inside and, you're looking at your phone and you're scrolling through, everyone does it. And it doesn't make you feel great, does it? Just kind of sitting there on your phone all the time. And, I think that's the same with computers. I think they're great and they have their place. And, I've got a son who absolutely loves his Xbox, and he's quite often on it way too, more than I would like, because I'm a really outdoorsy, person.
Yeah.
Constantly trying to battle with him to come off it. And that is the problem. It doesn't make you feel great when you're sat on it all the time.
No.
So it's just trying to get children off their computers for, a small amount of time, and into nature definitely helps.
Yeah, my brother was definitely that type at school that found it really hard to learn, and he's now gone into agriculture after doing a college course in agriculture. And I think it's that some people are just designed to want to work outside and be outside and learn that way. And I'm sure there's many people that leave your provision. It'd be interesting to find out actually how many go into agriculture, or at least kind of seek sort of forest schools at weekends and things.
Yeah, and interestingly, agriculture is getting a lot more popular now. My daughter's doing agriculture at BCA, doing the 14 to 16, and she's got they've got a lot of students now doing agriculture, which is brilliant. So yeah, it seems to be really, really popular again. So hopefully, well, almost trying to go backwards a little bit, aren't we? Trying to take children back to how I remember when I was a child. I was outside, I wanted to be outside all the time. I didn't really have computers. Showing my age a bit, but you were outside a lot more, just playing and being children and enjoying.
I guess it really meets the sensory requirements of a lot of our children as well, being outdoors. I think I've taken Max before to forest school on a weekend. We haven't been for a while, but he loved it. Like, honestly, we spent a good while just looking at worms, but he was so curious. And I think the sensory side of things as well, like even tipping rocks and mud out of a digger and into another thing. He loves tipping and pouring. So all of those things are just accessible when you're outdoors and when you've got the kind of activities. And then I guess they then learn, oh, okay, actually that's what I can do outdoors. So then I can go and replicate that, in the woods or somewhere locally to them. Pick
absolutely.
up leaves, whatever it might be.
And we find at nursery, when they first start, the outdoor nursery, we always say, what do they really love? Because we can do it all outside. We've got our girls that really still love their dolls, and we've got all of those out in the outdoor preschool, and we've got the diggers, and we've got the dinosaurs, and we can pretty much have all of that out in the mud for the children to really get involved.
Oh, it sounds amazing what you're doing, Vicky. Thank you so much for doing it, because it's people like you that give our children a different perspective on life and education, which is amazing. So you are a SEN parent as well, so and your children are a bit older now. What advice have you got for us that's sort of at the beginning of their journey with little ones and that've just been diagnosed?
I know it can feel very overwhelming, but listen to your children, I think, is the biggest advice. My daughter's always struggled in school, and just keep fighting for them. Unfortunately, that's what you end up doing, quite a lot. Is just fighting for your children. If they struggle in school and you're not in a position to homeschool, then that can be quite challenging too. So but I just think their mental health is way more important than their education. And actually, GCSEs don't have to be done at 16. They can be done later on in life as well. So I think it's really important, because we get into this routine of children having to do things at certain ages.
Yeah.
And they don't. Not really. You know, if they're not ready, there's a lot that happens as well as a teenager. It's a difficult time, and then, you know, we're putting them under a lot of pressure. So I just think, if you can, and I know it's easy to say, if you can, then just slow down, because there's no rush.
I love that. Vicki, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us
No
about all
problem.
things forest schools. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been
No
really
problem.
good.
Thank you
I've
for
learned a
coming.
lot, actually.
Thank you for having me.